My name is Kwon, and I'm the founder and CEO of a youth-based charity. I'm also known as a social entrepreneur. I'm a 2022 Westpac Social Change Fellow, and I'm also a UNSW alumni. My name is Kwon, and at the age of 21, I spent 13 years in prison for directing a criminal enterprise. I spent most of my 20s sitting in a maximum security prison, serving time across prisons across New South Wales. When I introduced myself the second time, did your perception of me change? You know, we all have preconceived notions of certain stereotypes. But what if I told you that we're all the same kind of Fruit Loop at the end of the day? I'm talking about Fruit Loop cereal. Who's ever tried Fruit Loops before? What's your favorite flavor? Is it red, blue, green? What if I told you that all the flavors in the cereal are the same flavor, and the only thing that changes the flavor is what we pour into them? Let me ask you, what's been poured into you guys to make you who you are today? My mum came from South Korea to Australia as an international student. She came here on a scholarship to the Sydney Conservatorium of Music. She came here as a single mother fleeing domestic violence, and also she was an opera singer as well. She had to work multiple jobs just to pay the rent, to put food on the table, and to pay for her tuition fees. And growing up, I never had a father figure or any positive adult role models. So I used to hang around on the street and look up to the older guys in our neighborhood. And we lived in a very marginalized area, pretty rough, pretty dodgy, because that was the only areas that my mom could afford. At a young age, I ended up dropping out of school in year 10, and I ended up joining a gang. And I never joined a gang because of the criminality factors. I joined the gang because that was the only place where I felt a sense of belonging. That was the only place where I felt accepted. You know, I should have been feeling this at school, but I wasn't. And I was being accepted rather in the school of hard knocks, which was the streets. And crime only became a byfactor of wanting to belong to a community. A month after my 21st birthday, I was staying at the Shangri-La Hotel in Sydney in the Rocks. I was staying at the executive suite. And that morning, I just done a drug deal, and there was about $50,000 cash sitting on the coffee table. And I thought I'd celebrate, and I felt pretty hungry, so I ordered room service. I ordered a big breakfast and a long black. And I get a knock on the door, and I'm thinking that it's room service. So I'm walking up to the door. All of a sudden, the door swings open. Guys dressed in black, wearing balaclavas and masks come in saying, "Get on the ground, get on the ground." Now, at that point, there's two things going through my mind. Number one, I think you might have the wrong room because this isn't the breakfast that I ordered. And number two, crap, I'm getting robbed. That's what happens when you're a criminal. Other criminals rob each other. So I'm thinking they're here for the cash and not me. So I've thrown the cash all over the floor, and I made my exit towards the door. All of a sudden, I get a machine gun to the side of the head, and I drop to the floor, and everything is in slow motion, probably because I'm concussed. There's cash all around, and I hear the words which made my heart sink to my stomach. "This is the police. You're under arrest." Now, as the detectives came in and handcuffed me and read out my rights, they lifted me up, and I could see out the window this view. I was looking out the window of my executive suite, and I remember seeing this. My mum used to save up the little money that she used to save to buy tickets to take me to the opera house, because that was the only place where we could escape the realities of life. That was our safe place. I just disgraced everything that she worked so hard for and that she sacrificed, and I'd taken everything for granted. And that was my last view of freedom. Before I was locked up at the age of 21, I was sentenced to 13 years in prison for directing a criminal enterprise. And I was shipped over to a maximum security prison called Parkley Jail. Now, when I was in prison, the common denominator for why most inmates are incarcerated isn't because of some sort of childhood trauma and disadvantage, but another commonality was the lack of education. And I used to be a part of that statistic because I dropped out of school in year 10, and up until then, I never even went to school. You know, there came a time when I was in jail that I wanted to change my life around. I didn't want to live like this anymore because everyone around me were either getting released and they were coming back straight into jail, or I was watching them dead on the 6 p.m. news. And I wanted to change my life around. And I literally didn't know how. I was never given the tools or opportunities. But I don't know if you want to call it fate or call it luck. One day, this guy ended up becoming my cellmate. He was a billionaire accountant who come to prison for Australia's largest tax fraud. And he ended up becoming my really good mate. And not only did he teach me accounting every day from a prison cell, he taught me about business. He taught me about the value of education, why I should educate myself. And most importantly, he taught me about self-worth. You know, it's ironic that I had to go to a prison to meet my first ever positive mentor. And he actually even motivated me to do my HSC while I was inside. Some time had passed and I was in the yard with the boys training, and this prison officer, he comes up to me and hands me this letter and goes, "Joe, I don't know how you did it, but you bloody did it." And out of curiosity, I took that letter to my cell and I sat on the bed. And as I opened up the letter, it said, "Congratulations, you've been accepted into the University of New South Wales." Now, it was so embarrassing because I never cried that hard. Sitting in that cell, holding onto the letter, I was breaking down into tears because no one will understand the feeling of freedom that I was feeling in that moment. Education not only gave me hope, but education set me free. And it was because someone believed in me for the first time. Right now in Australia, the criminal age of responsibility is 10 years old, which means we're locking up children as young as 10. Now, I want you to marinate this for a sec. Do you guys know any 10-year-olds? Maybe it's your child or your sibling, niece, or a nephew. Well, what about we think about when we were 10 at one point? How young that was. Right now in Australia, we're locking up children that are 10 years old. It's costing our community, taxpayers, $1.2 million to house a single child behind bars each year. And around 80% of these children are returning back to custody within the first 12 months of their release. Now, we know through change research that locking up children, and especially people, does not work. Let me ask you a question. If you had to make an investment, but this investment lost money 80% of the time, would you put money into that investment? Or what about if you had to take a very important surgery, a major surgery, and the surgeon failed 80% of the time? Would you take that surgery? Then why are we pouring billions of our taxpayer dollars into a justice system that is continually failing our society? You know, I truly believe that there are some people that should not be let out of prison. And it's coming from someone that's done time. And there are some people that don't want to change. But this is a very small minority of the incarceration population. The majority of the incarcerated stem from extreme childhood trauma, a lot of disadvantage, and they've never been given the right opportunities in life. I'm a firm believer that society's safety comes first and foremost. And if you do the crime, there are going to be consequences of you doing the time. But prisons serve their value in our society, and sometimes they're taken for granted to be the solution to rehabilitation. You know, locking up some of our most vulnerable people and throwing away the keys and expecting that it's going to produce different results every time is not the solution. The solution is us providing the right type of rehabilitation programs inside. And believe me, the programs currently running in jails, they're bad. So running the right type of programs inside. But the most important thing is changing society's perception on people with lived prison experience. Because in turn, that will create more opportunities for people, for some of our most vulnerable people. So when I got out of prison, I started a charity called Conflict Pathways. So we deliver youth mentoring programs in all youth justice centres across New South Wales, ACT, Victoria, and now we're about to run intervention programs out in the community. Now, what makes our program so unique is the fact that all the mentors and the facilitators of our program have lived experience of the justice system themselves. And this has a huge, powerful impact on incarcerated young people when we're able to connect with them. I mean, peer-to-peer mentoring has been used for a long time in a lot of different industries and fields, such as the Defense Force for PTSD and mental health. But it was never used in the justice space. We were one of the first organizations to be able to implement this and scale it across New South Wales in a youth justice setting. It's quite hard trying to get former adult inmates back into a youth justice center. The security clearance around that is next level. But we managed to do that. And we're seeing great outcomes from it. We also have a partnership with the University of New South Wales where we provide full scholarships and campus accommodation to some of our young people that are doing our program who want to pursue higher education. And why we offer campus accommodation is because there are so many talented young people who fall through the cracks when they return to an environment that doesn't support them of their education. A lot of these household structures are very violent, and some of them, their parents are in and out of prison or rehab. So what we do, we plug them out of that environment, put them into the university environment, and we provide them with the wraparound support. And I can proudly say, I can't really see because of the lights, but there are some young people that's on our scholarship program right now sitting in this room. Or they better be. So when I started this program, when I started this charity, we started this pro bono at the start. It was just myself and maybe 2 other guys in one center, and the demand started to grow, and we needed to grow our initiative, and we needed funding. Imagine this. Who in their right mind were going to give a bunch of ex-cons who started this charity who were still all on parole? And that's the perception, right? And we had so many of the boys, even from jail, hitting me up saying, "What's the scam that you're running, bro? What's this thing, charity? Where's the money coming from?" But that was coming from both sides. People in the community were like, "Oh man, let someone else give them the money first." They couldn't trust us. Perception, once again. One day, a friend of mine, she introduced me to this scholarship stream called the Westpac Social Change Fellowship. They handed out 10 scholarships to incredible social change makers across Australia each year. And she wanted me to apply for it. And I was curious at this scholarship, so I had a look at the previous recipients of this scholarship. And some of these guys had titles I've never even heard of. OAM, AM, Australian of the Year, me on parole. What chance did I have, right? But I put that application in anyway, and somehow, miraculously, I made it to the final interview panel in front of 3 judges. And now when I sat in front of these 3 judges, I said to them, the last time I sat in front of 3 judges was at the Supreme Court for being a criminal, but today I'm sitting in front of you guys as a social change maker. I mean, talk about transferable skills, right? But all jokes aside, one of the judges, he said to me, "Joe, we're a bank. We're one of the most risk-averse organizations in the world. And to us, you're a huge risk. How can you reassure us that you're not going to be a risk?" And I said to him, "I can't reassure you any more than the work that I've been doing so far. But if a bank like Westpac cannot support second chances and opportunities for individuals such as myself, how do you expect the rest of society to follow suit?" So to my amazement and gratitude, in 2022, I ended up becoming one of the Westpac Social Change Fellows. Thank you. But if it wasn't for the so many people in the community who supported me, not as Joe, the inmate, but believing in me as Joe, someone with potential, I don't know where I will be today. Who knows where I'll be? Imagine if we can harness the strengths and the potential of so many of the disadvantaged youth and guide them and provide them opportunities and believe in them for what they can achieve and who they can become, rather than focusing on what they've done in the past. What kind of positive flow-on effect we can have in our communities. The byproduct of changing our perception will in turn create more opportunities in our society. Remember I said at the beginning, We're all the same humans at the end of the day. We're all the same Fruit Loop. We're not born broken, but we're products of what's been put into us, what's been poured into us. Is it hate or hope? Is it abandonment or support? Is it punishment or possibilities? Just like someone believed in me, imagine if we could believe in those who wanted to create that change for themselves in their lives. I mean, we can't help those who don't want to change. But what about the people that do want to change? Instead of seeing them as monsters or bad people, what about we start to see them and perceive them as vulnerable people that need the right type of support? You know, I remember Gandhi once said, the measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable members. You know, our perceptions of our preconceived notions of different stereotypes, they're not incomplete. So they're not incorrect, they're incomplete. So next time you see someone that society has given up on, be the person that doesn't. Because be the person that believes in someone for someone else to have that freedom in their life. Thank you very much.